Welcome to Sci-Fi Steve's Museum of Television and Movies, Rockets and Flying Saucers. Today's tour is inspired by the television series UFO, which ran in the early 1970s. This was a British science fiction series about an alien invasion of Earth created by Gerry Anderson, Sylvia Anderson, and Reg Hill. I'm particularly a fan of Gerry Anderson as he was one of the last of the real model builders. That is, he built three-dimensional models for his show. This is long before CGI came around. Since there are no descriptions of the saucer anywhere, we have to create the description based on the mission statement. That is what we observe the saucer doing. First of all, the saucer is relatively small, 35, 45 feet across, that kind of thing. It carries two crew members from their star to us, and then an additional two hostages back. Okay, we know that the travel time was about 4 months, which we got from the episode called Close Up. Alright, we know that to cover from here to another star anywhere, you're going to have to be a great deal faster than the speed of light. The saucer performs battles both in space and in the Earth's atmosphere. It is capable of landing in the water or on land. I divided the saucer into two distinct sections. The outside section holds all of the equipment and power sources for FTL speed. That is the piece that you see spinning. In the center there is a cylinder, and that's where the crew stays. Okay, the outside measurements are 35 feet in diameter, 40 feet high. So the first question becomes, what is the power supply for the ship? I started off, the obvious answer is antimatter. But we saw the ship detonate or explode or self-destruct. If it had an antimatter core of some kind and it was detonated on the planet Earth, the destruction would be unbelievable, enough to make the possibility of extinction a reality. So I went on to the next best thing. Fusion should supply all the power we need to travel from star to star. So the question becomes, how can I build a fusion reactor that will spin, and where would I put it within the body of the ship? I decided the largest single space was the dish shape at the bottom of the saucer itself. The ship would be able to hold it within that donut-shaped ring to supply all of the ship's power. Let's start by rolling out the plasma ring itself. The saucer is very small, so I dropped the components needed to start the fusion reactor. I decided that they would fire off the reactor on the home planet before the launch. The fusion reactor would remain on for the entire trip here, the duration on planet Earth, and their flight back. If they lost the fusion reactor for any reason, that is, they lost the heat from the fusion to sustain the fusion power, the ship would be lost. I encased the fusion plasma in a large, probably titanium ceramic ring. This is designed to hold the plasma within it and prevent it from hitting any other portion of the saucer. The ring also contains the magnets necessary to suspend the plasma from hitting the sides of the container itself. Then, around the ring, I placed 16 thermal generators at every point where the saucer's vanes would meet the ring. These generators would pick up the heat from the plasma, convert it directly into electricity. This current would be moved into the copper cores that run through the vanes that would be necessary to create the magnetic field for faster-than-light drive. Fusion reaction requires a fuel. In this case, we're using H3. We use H3 because the fusion that takes place with H3 has almost no radioactive byproducts. Now, I know that H3 isn't a very prevalent product here on Earth. I'm assuming that our boys from another star know what they're doing and can produce it. Just a sidebar to the fusion reactor. This is the component that was used to self-destruct the saucers when it became necessary or clear, either by the choice of the pilot and crew or as an automated piece of the saucer, that the saucer was going to be exposed to the humans. The fusion reactor core, the magnet suspending it, would be turned off and the fusion would be allowed to come in contact with the ship itself, thus creating self-destruction. From each of the generators, I ran a series of coils that would be encased inside each of the saucer's vanes. The coils would be made of a highly sensitive magnetic material that would allow it to create a magnetic field encompassing the entire saucer. With the magnetic field in place and being of sufficient intensity, the saucer should be able to create a warp bubble, allowing it to move faster than the speed of light. Last is the weapon system. It's a particle beam system. It is located at the end of each one of the vanes. It draws its power from the same energy that is used for the creation of the magnetic field. It draws for just a second and creates a burst. Now, on the back of each one of the flat discs at the end of the vane, there is an emitter, and there is 5 magnetic guides. And what the guides do is they place magnetic field energy onto the disc for the pointing of the ray, and between the 5 they can point the beam in any direction that they need to. First, let's take a look at how the living area center cylinder attaches to the remainder of the saucer. The structure you're looking at here attaches to the vanes on the saucer and to the glass, and this all spins. But this is the area that attaches to the center cylinder or living space. I want to show you it first. Here is where the inner cylinder marries to the outer cylinder, and that's done at those reinforcement points that you see around there at those rings. Now the crew, of course, is on the inner cylinder. The outer portion is whirling around, creating the warp bubble so that the ship can move faster than the speed of light. The rings on the inner cylinder there at the point where the outer hull matches to the inner hull are magnetic guides, like a magnetic rail system, like a rail car or something like that. There is no physical touching. These are magnetic fields which are on all the time. They're earthen magnets, not electrically controlled. At the top of the center cylinder, there is also a fixed series of bright green cones. That has to do with celestial navigation. The telemetry is all loaded up before the saucer takes off, and it goes into that portion, and that's how they know where it is that they're going and how to get home. An airlock is absolutely necessary for this saucer because, as described in the mission statement, it lands underwater and the occupants can come and go. A hatch on the bottom or something like that is going to have an airlock to keep the water out. You say, well, I'll open it with a force field to hold the water out, allow the passengers to come and go. There's only a 3% difference between a human body and an ordinary bag of water, and a force field of that complexity I just didn't see with this technology. Okay, I kept the force or the airlock really simple. It's a pair of sleeves that fit around the cylinder. Both sleeves drop. Both sleeves have an opening for the door, but when it drops, the outer sleeve is rotated 90 degrees off from the inner sleeve, thus blocking the water from going into the inner sleeve. So once it's down, that sleeve rotates around. As it rotates around, it exposes the 2 openings. It just allows the water to flood in slowly. You come and you go. You get back in, you close that cylinder, and when you pull the 2 of them up, it acts like a piston and just forces the water out. Alright, drop the airlock, rotate the sleeve around, and let's enter the saucer. This is the entry at the bottom of the saucer. You're in the center cylinder at this time. It measures approximately 10 feet across and 16 feet high. It's divided just a little past halfway, so the bottom half is 9 feet, the upper half is 7 feet. The lower half contains all the survival areas for the trip, 2 crew member seats, 2 hostage containers. The second level is the control room. This is the first of the 2 crew member seats, and remember, they'll be in their space suits. The helmet will fit firmly between the 2 sponge holders there, preventing the head from moving around. There's a small seat, and as we pan down, you'll see there are 2 sets of restraining devices or seat belts. Okay, on his left or our right, you'll see the blue hose coming off of the green container. That'll plug into the back of his spacesuit. That will provide him power, and that will provide him a constant refresh supply of the green fluid. Okay, now he's all set now. He's all locked in and everything like that, and that's all it takes. It really gets it down to next to nothing. And he can sit here, whether he's in an induced sleep or not, makes no difference to me. Okay, as we pan down, you'll notice to his right, he'll have 2 rifles and 4 magazines. This is the hostage seat. It varies from the crew seat in that this room area can be sealed tight. And it can be sealed tight, and the cylinders up above spheres are filled with compressed preservative gas because, as we saw in most of the episodes, the hostages did not go voluntarily. They were shot and killed. Well, you're going to put them 4 months in the saucer to get them where you want to go. They're going to be dead, stinky meat. You want to have them preserved. So this closes up tight. The gas fills the chamber, and then as you can see on the bottom, there are some drains. There's also some electronic devices, just in case one of them's alive, you can still preserve them and keep the old heart going. The elevator down, the elevator back up. Here are the saucer control panels. This is where they perform flight maneuvers, target us, shoot at us, select specific landing sites, things like that. I was originally going to have the whole thing automated from the time they left to the time they arrived, but if you actually take a look at the very first episode, they're moving around some technical equipment by air, and the saucers come to target that. Well, they launched some 4 months earlier. They wouldn't know the time of takeoff, the exact flight pattern. That's stuff that has to be determined after they arrive here, and I figured that could only be done by a humanoid. Also, they have to be able to select specific targets. You have a fleet of planes, a defending jet, fighter, stuff like that from the transport jet. Once again, those kind of things have to be determined by a humanoid. And that's what these panels do for them. These are the saucer's computers, and the saucer is very dependent on the computers. The computers totally fly the ship from the time it launches all the way until it drops below light speed at Earth, and then the computers fly the ship all the way back home. The pilots are responsible when the ship drops below light speed. Here we have the batteries for the internal cylinder, and these are completely separate from the fusion reactor and have nothing to do with each other. These are nuclear batteries, and that is, electricity is created by using nuclear decay to generate electric current. Very common in many of our spacecrafts going all the way back to Voyager. Real good stuff if you need longevity. If you're on a budget, you don't want to use this. And the last item we're looking at here are the electrical relays, which tie the electrical conduits together and passes the current on to various objects throughout the ship. They serve the same purpose as a large relay system. Well, this is high voltage stuff, and it ties all the electrical systems inside the cylinder to the batteries, right? And this separates the inner ship from the outer fusion reactor. There's no connections between the inner cylinder and the outer rotating part of the ship. I want to thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the drawings and the walkthrough of the UFO saucer.